When Bon Scott was alive, he was with AC/DC.
Yep.
You were a guy in a band called the Geordies.
Geordies.
Geordies. Was that how you said it?
Geordie, yeah.
You know, it was an obscure kind of band, right? They weren't doing all that well. And you had even said you were almost at the point where you had no money, you were living with your parents, you were in your 20s.
That's right, 30s.
At your 30s.
30s, you're living at home.
Yeah, you were living with your parents.
Fucking loser.
Yeah. you were living with your parents, and you'd even said, you know what, I'm going to give it another couple of weeks, but if it doesn't work out,
that's right.
I'm going to open an automotive business.
Which I did.
You did? Well, how do you go from the Geordies to AC/DC? Bon Scott dies. Who knew to call you from AC/DC when old Bon went?
First of all, there was a fan from Cleveland, to my eternal debt, I think, Mutt Langer, who kept saying, listen, you got Mutt Lang, he said, you got to try this guy. And Bon Scott himself unwittingly told the boys, he said, of all the rock singers I've seen in England, there's this kid called Brian Johnson who played with when he was in the other band. Yeah. And we played together, and we got on well, me and Bon. We just had a pint, and we went our separate ways, and I never saw him again.
But that's very generous of him to go around.
It was very nice of him.
Some lead singers would be possessive and not mention the good news singer.
But I think he had a gig,
Right. He was secure. Yeah.
But he just, it was a very nice thing to say. So they put the three together and said, we've got to find this guy. So I got the telephone call in my office, and this woman said, is this Brian Johnson?
Yeah.
And I went, who's this? And she went, this I cannot say because I'm phoning for you must to come to sing in London.
It was a German woman, I think.
Yeah. And I said...
It's top secret.
I said, well, for which band? She said, I cannot tell you this. I said, but, well, I'm not coming down to London if you cannot tell.
She called you for the audition and says, I cannot tell you who is the band or nothing.
I said, well, you got to give us a clue. She went, okay, the initials are AC on CTC. And I said, so it's AC/DC. She went, I have said too much.
Who was she, Ava Braun?
Well, no, we called her Olga from the Volga.
You auditioned in front of the other guys, right?
Yeah, well, I still wasn't going to go down. I was still worried about this music. I said, listen, I'm 32. I'm past my sell-by date for rock bands. I'm an old fart. And she went, this is the man we're after.
I like this woman.
She was. I never did see her.
But you went because it was AC/DC, and you knew that was a good paying.
Well, it was a good thing, but you got to remember the boys were like a cult following. They had a cult following.
That's true.
They played college TV, and and everybody loved them. But
they weren't as big because they blew up after your album, Back in Black.
Yeah, but everybody loved them, and they were just breaking in America and everywhere. And just after that call, 30 minutes later, I got a call from a guy. And he says, Brian, you remember me? And I said, sure. He said, well, I'm doing jingles now. Would you sing on a Hoover advert? And I said, how much? And he said, 350 quid. He said, with residuals. And I said, I'll come down. And I went down and I phoned up the boys. I said, I'll come down and do it on the same day. So I went in and did this. The new high-powered hoop mover from Hoover. It's a beautiful mover. There's £350.
Is that right?
And then from there, I remember coming out the studio and just saying, gosh, it's getting late. I have to get back to Newcastle, which is a 5-6 hour drive in there. Yeah. Or do I walk across that street to Vanilla Studios?
That's right. Well, on the one hand, you had to get back to your parents' basement.
But I made a fateful decision that evening. I just said, bollocks, I'm going to walk across the street. And I did.
Thank goodness.
And I opened the door, and there was 4 guys sitting on chairs with the big Marshall amps behind them, looking quite miserable because they've been waiting for us, And I came and I said, guys, and they said, are you Brian from Newcastle? I said, I am. They went. And I'll never forget Malcolm, God bless his cotton socks, came over and he gave us a bottle of Newcastle brown ale. He said, there you go, me son. I know you like that. I said, mate, I could kill this. And I drank it. We sang and played.
So you drank, you got a little loaded, and then you started to play with those guys.
1 bottle of brown ale loaded? Oh, you must be kidding.
So you start to drink with the boys, you bond with the boys, and do they start playing AC/DC songs?
We did do. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, Nutbush City Limits. And they said, what? I said, I like that song.
Nutbush City Limits?
Yeah. And Mal says, I think I can do that, mate. I'll just give it a little shotty there, And I played a few chords,
Yeah.
And then I started rocking it. I started singing. I got goosebumps. They got I started going wide, and everybody suddenly started thinking, "Whoa, what's
Maybe
happening
we got
here?
something here."
What's happening here?"
And so did they hire you on the spot? They said, or did they play the game with you? Oh, why don't you go home? We'll think about it. And or did they say, look, this is
No,
it?
it was what happened was I said, "Thanks very much, lads, for the sing." I said, "Wait till I get back to my band. They're not going to believe I sang with you guys." But thanks very much. And they went, "Where you going?" I said, "I got to get home, mate. I got to open the shop up in the morning."
That's right.
They got, you can't leave.
Right.
I said, "Why not?" I said, "I've really got to go." And they said, so the manager chased us out. I was going, "Bye-bye, lads. Thank you." And they were going, "The fuck?"
So you get into AC/DC, and you get in the studio, and how long does it take you to record?
6 weeks.
6 weeks for the entire album.
6 weeks for the entire
How
album.
did they
Isn't
know
that the
they could
magic?
write together?
They don't. Sometimes it's
Just get in there,
just
get
get
it
in there and
out.
do it.
It was probably the most magical time of my life. I knew something was happening, but it was happening so quick I couldn't grasp it.
Could you grasp it? This was going to be a huge album.
Absolutely not. No, I just know one thing. The first song I had to write was "Shook Me All Night Long."
Wow.
And I remember sitting there, and this is when my passion with cars comes in. The first line I wrote was, "She was a fast machine. She kept the motor clean. She was the best damn woman." And I went, I'm writing about cars again.
Right.
And I give it to Mal the next morning. He's going, "Hey, are you writing about cars?" I went, "No." I said, I'm trying to the women in the car. And he said, "No worries, mate. It sounds great."
You Shook
Why
Me
we did
All
it.
Night Long was the first song you wrote with those
First
guys.
song I wrote with them. And I said quite cockily the next day after I'd heard it, the first rough mix. And I was sitting, because we just had a little cassette player in this little house we had. And then the next morning, Mal put it on again. He said, "I'm going to have a listen to this again, mate." And I sat and I just went, "Do you know, I think that's about the best rock and roll song I think I've ever heard in my life." And I went, "What?" I said, "I'm telling you, I think that's the best rock
You
and
feel a
roll."
little crazy saying
I
that
know,
because,
because I was the new boy. And, and I
Right.
said, and Mal said, "You could be right, mate."